A look back at the European Union, from inception to the present challenges. The birth of the European Union. The European Union, EU, was conceived in the aftermath of World War II with the primary aim of fostering economic cooperation under the belief that countries that trade together are more likely to avoid conflicts. The initial steps towards integration began with the European Coal and Steel Community in 1951, followed by the Treaty of Rome in 1957, which established the European Economic Community, EEC. The vision was clear: to create a unified economic area that would ensure peace, stability, and economic prosperity across Europe. Expansion and integration. Over the decades, the EU expanded its membership and scope. The Maastricht Treaty of 1992 marked a significant milestone by creating the EU and setting the path for economic and monetary union, culminating in the introduction of the euro in 1999. Countries from Eastern Europe, emerging from the collapse of the Soviet Union, were eager to join the EU, seeking economic benefits and political stability. The enlargement included nations like Greece, which, despite its economic challenges, became part of the EU family. Brexit, the UK's departure. One of the most significant events in the EU's history was Brexit. The United Kingdom, having never adopted the euro, voted to leave the EU in a 2016 referendum. The decision was driven by a desire to reclaim sovereignty, control immigration, and reduce financial contributions to the EU budget. Brexit marked a turning point, highlighting the growing dissatisfaction within member states about the EU's bureaucracy and perceived overreach. Italy and Hungary, calls for independence. Italy and Hungary have increasingly expressed their discontent with Brussels. Italy, in particular, has realized that its future may not lie with EU bureaucrats, whom many perceive as corrupt and misusing European taxpayers' money. Hungary, under Viktor Orban, has also clashed with the EU on various issues, from immigration policies to judicial reforms. Both countries have shown a desire to assert their independence, challenging the EU's central authority. The impact of COVID-19. The COVID-19 pandemic further exposed cracks within the EU. The initial response was criticized for being slow and uncoordinated, leading to significant economic repercussions. The pandemic strained public health systems and economies, revealing the limitations of the EU's ability to manage such crises effectively. The economic fallout prompted massive recovery packages, but also increased national debts, leading to debates about the sustainability of such financial support. High energy costs and the Ukraine war. The war in Ukraine has had profound implications for the EU's economy, particularly through soaring energy costs. The conflict disrupted energy supplies, leading to high prices and economic instability. These challenges have strained relations within the EU, as member states grapple with the economic consequences and the need for a unified response. The energy crisis has underscored the EU's vulnerability and the need for a more resilient energy strategy. Turkey's EU applications and strategic shift. Turkey has long sought to join the EU, with its application for membership dating back to 1987. Despite being a candidate country since 1999, negotiations have been fraught with difficulties, including concerns over human rights, democracy, and regional stability. However, recent geopolitical shifts suggest that Turkey may have been fortunate not to become an EU member. Instead, Turkey has found new alignments, joining forces with the UK post-Brexit and participating in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, SCO. This strategic pivot allows Turkey to maintain greater sovereignty and flexibility in its international relations. Sanctions and their economic impact. The sanctions imposed by the United States and forced upon the EU have further complicated the economic landscape. These sanctions, intended to pressure various countries into compliance with Western policies, have often backfired. While the EU's economy has suffered due to restricted trade and higher energy costs, sanctioned countries have adapted and even thrived. For example, Turkey's defense industry has seen remarkable growth, increasing local manufacturing from 25% to 85%. Such resilience has enabled these countries to become more independent and self-sufficient, undermining the intended impact of the sanctions. The changing global power dynamics. The U.S. foreign policy continues to operate as if it were still the unchallenged superpower of the post-Cold War era. However, this stance is increasingly at odds with the current global reality. China has surpassed the US in various economic and technological domains, emerging as a formidable global power. Meanwhile, the US faces its own significant challenges, including a staggering $35 trillion national debt. Servicing this debt requires over $1 trillion annually in interest payments alone, putting immense pressure on the U.S. economy. This financial burden diminishes the U.S.'s ability to wield its influence globally, transforming it from a king of the world into a nation struggling to manage its fiscal responsibilities. The U.S. as a black hole, sucking the EU's vitality. In many ways, the U.S. can be compared to a black hole, exerting a powerful gravitational pull on the EU. The imposition of sanctions, high energy costs due to geopolitical conflicts, and economic policies dictated by the U.S. have significantly drained the EU's economic vitality. While the U.S. grapples with its own financial crises, its policies have inadvertently sucked the economic life out of its European allies, exacerbating the EU's economic decline. This parasitic relationship highlights the urgent need for the EU to assert its own economic sovereignty and reduce its dependency on U.S. policies. The future of the EU. The future of the EU remains uncertain. Ursula von der Leyen, the president of the European Commission, faces the daunting task of holding the Union together amid growing dissatisfaction. Some member states may follow the UK's lead, considering exits of their own. If more countries choose to leave, the EU could be reduced to a core of stronger economies like France and Germany, alongside a few weaker states. The EU was founded on noble ideals of unity and cooperation, but it now faces significant challenges that threaten its cohesion. As the EU navigates these turbulent times, it must address the concerns of its member states, reform its bureaucratic structures, and find effective solutions to economic and political crises. The coming years will be critical in determining whether the EU can adapt and thrive or if it will see further fragmentation.